What's up guys, welcome to episode 5 of Monday Gunday. Today we are going over another highly requested gun, the CZ P-10C. So the CZ P-10C was introduced in 2017 after it started development in 2014. It's the first partially pre-cocked striker-fired handgun that CZ has produced. There's not a really long history on the P-10C. After it was released in 2017, it was pretty smooth going. No recalls, nothing crazy. Not a lot of people adopted it. Currently only being fielded by the Czech Republic and some armed forces in Poland that I know of from my research. If you guys know of any other places where the P-10C is in service, drop it down in the comments. So the P-10C has an overall length of 7.3 inches, a barrel length of 4.02 inches, a width of 1.26 inches, and a height of 5.2 inches with a capacity of 15 rounds plus 1 in the chamber. The cost can be anywhere from $500 to $550 depending on where you get it, if you're getting it used or new, or what variation you're getting. But today we're just going over the original P-10C. Obviously the C in P-10C stands for compact. It was kind of made to be a competitor to Glocks and the M&Ps. A lot of people said it was a Glock killer, and for good reason. It has a great trigger, really good bore axis, and just generally shoots really well. Great ergonomics as well. So now that we've talked about it a little bit, let's take it out to the range and see how it shoots. All right guys, we're out at the range now running the P-10C. As always, we're gonna run through our 3 little drills, starting with the bill drill at 7 yards, then we'll do the 3R3, and then move back to 10 yards and do the B8 for accuracy. So let's start off with the bill drill. In the bill drill, like we've said before, we are looking specifically at mostly the trigger reset, how fast can you run the trigger, ergonomics of the grip and the bore axis, how easily can you keep the gun on target through longer strings of fire and maintain good recoil control. So let's start off with the bill drill. That looks clean in a 206. Let's run one more. Ooh, I went a little left and one high right there in a 198. So I wouldn't call those breaking. That one's out and that one's out. Had kind of a funky purchase on that, but I do really like the trigger. The reset is fast, ergonomics are good. So far, a fan of this gun. So let's go back to 7 yards and go for the 3R3. For this one, we're testing ergonomics of the mag release, the slide release, mag well, whether or not it has one, and just see how well you can slam a good reload in there. So I'm gonna download to 3 because we wanna go slide lock. All right, stand by. That was clean. That was a 434. Threw 2 more in this mag. Stand by. That was a 394. That was a good one. Honestly, pleasantly surprised. As you can see, it doesn't really come with much. It's very slightly flared right there, but those were good reloads. I did do 2 reloads before shooting this just to get a little more well acquainted with the gun, but yeah, it does lend itself to a nice reload. So, oh, I did drop one on one of those, but all around I'm pretty happy with this gun. So let's move it back to 10 yards and go for the B8. All right, so now we're gonna run the 10-yard B8, testing the sights, how clean does the trigger break, ergonomics, stuff like that. I will reiterate that I believe the sights right now on this slide are Dawson Precision, but they're not very far off from the stock sights. So take that with a pinch of salt, but we will talk about that later in the video. So let's go back to 10 yards real quick. All right. See what we can do. All right, that's 10. I think I threw a few low. The trigger is nice, but I'm still not quite used to it, so I was getting a little bit of anticipation. But with these sights, it's point of aim, point of impact, so I put that fiber optic right there. But down 2, so that's a 98. The rest were in the 10, a few in the X. Like we said before, these aren't the stock sights. I think they're Dawson Precisions, which are super nice sights, and that will contribute to the aftermarket score because these are really good sights. But the stock sights aren't very different. Really, the only difference is they have 2 night sights in the rear, or just the 2 dots, and then 1 dot up front. But they are very similar in their height and point of impact, having shot a few P-10s before. So let's take it back to the armory and tally up our score. All right, guys, we're back from the range, and I am pretty pleased with the P-10C. So we're gonna jump right into our scoring system. So as always, we start out with cost, and with them coming in new around 500 to 550, it's pretty good. So we gave it an 8. It's pretty average with around like the M&Ps. Glocks are slightly more expensive, but we're pretty pleased with how much the P-10C costs and what you get. The ergonomics, I gave it an 8. It does have the interchangeable back straps. It does fit really nicely in the hand. The beaver tail is nice. It just feels good as far as a more compact striker fire handgun goes. So like I said, we gave it an 8. Moving on to the trigger, I was very happy with the trigger. It's probably one of the best striker fired pistol triggers out there. So I gave it a 9. It has a good take up, a very solid wall, a really clean break, and a super fast reset. And I found that to be very helpful when I ran the build drills. Next up is bore axis. I gave it a 9 as well. It has a very low bore axis, and it is a very pleasant shooting handgun. It's very easy to control the recoil, much better than say like a P320, or I don't really want to bag on the Walthers, but they do have a little bit higher bore axis. But the P-10C has a great bore axis, so I gave it a 9. The sights, this one was kind of hard for us to do because really the only model we had to work with had some Dawsons installed, but they're fairly similar to the stock P-10 sights. Really the only difference is the front fiber optic, and the rear doesn't have the 2 dots. The P-10Cs come with a set of metal 3-dot sights that they are night sights, but they're not tritium. They're just kind of like a glow-in-the-dark paint, which they work well, but they're not as bright as tritium. But I have shot a lot of P-10Cs, and they are very similar to the Dawsons that are on here. They're point of aim, point of impact, very, very accurate, very easy to shoot. So I gave the sights a 7. Next up is aftermarket support. Being that it is still a fairly new handgun, there's not quite the support that like Glock has, but with its popularity, the aftermarket support has grown a lot. I gave it a 7 just because it's not quite up to where the Glock is or the M&P, but there's still a lot of really great parts. There's a lot of people doing optic cuts. Obviously, we make a lot of holsters for it. This is the holster I ran it out of. I ran out of our Axis Slim, but all of our models are available for it, as well as a lot of other things like triggers, sights, all the cool stuff. Next up is capacity. It's competing with the Glock 19, so it's pretty average. This one without extensions is a 15 plus 1 in the chamber, so it's fairly average. I gave it a 6. Nothing really special, but still a great carry gun. Serviceability is up next. I gave it an 8 because it's very similar to how a Glock takes down basically toolless. You can take it all the way down with just a punch. but very easy to field strip, take apart, clean, put back together, switch parts out, so it gets an 8. Moving on to value, I gave it an 8. It doesn't come with a ton of stuff. It's pretty on par with most other striker fired pistols. It comes in not a crazy nice plastic case. It comes with 3 mags, I believe. We didn't have the box here, but I think it comes with 3 mags. But since it's only around 500 to 550, I think that's still a pretty decent value for the performance that you get. So we went with an 8 on value. And last, as always, is cool factor. This is completely subject to the reviewer, me. I gave it a 7. It shoots really well. I really like it. It's a high performing handgun. It's something that you can be really confident in. But other than that, it's not a really aesthetically pleasing or crazy cool gun, which I know is subjective, but it's just my opinion. I like how it shoots. It feels nice, but there's really no other crazy features or cool history behind it. So I went with a 7. And that brings the total score to a 77, which I think is a pretty good score. What was the last one, Aaron?
80 was like
an 80. So yeah, it's getting up there with the Canic, which so far has been our highest score. But yeah, the P-10C is a great handgun. We carry a lot of holsters for it. It's a great carry gun. As always, guys, don't forget to leave a comment on what you think we should do next as far as handguns go. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.